Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I decided we're gonna be discussing best decks of the format. Sort of again, if you want to look at it that way, but today we're not doing a tier list, we're not doing anything like that. We will simply focus on the best decks because we discussed a couple of options when it comes to tech cards, hand traps, budget options, but if you truly just want to get your hands on a very good deck, I figured why not, look at this list that I am going to make in this video, cover the top 10 best decks that you can pick up right now, and then you can decide for yourself. I'll talk about, just a couple words on every single deck, what it does, why it's good, where it sort of is on the power level next to the other best, 9 decks. And yeah, with all of that, I guess I can give you some good ideas as to what you can play and pick up. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. As always, if you agree, disagree, what deck are you playing, what deck will you maybe be picking up in the future, all of that. Also, I would like to encourage you to subscribe because a lot of you still have not subscribed, or, ding the notification bell, do all of that so you don't miss out on any of my future content and you're a part of this community. With that being said, we can go into the actual decks. So on this list, I have 10 decks. But I actually want to discuss 9 of them in the actual order that I want to place them in. And the 10th one we're going to be discussing right now, and it's going to be Despia. And why it's not listed anywhere, it's because it hasn't really performed here in the TCG without the new support. There have been different engines played with Despia, but it hasn't really seen the representation. But I still wanted to include it because I see great potential in it and because it has been dominating OCG for quite a long time now. So basically Despia in a nutshell, with the brand diffusion, which is the support, it got like a Shadow fusion for the archetype. It just fusions. It just makes a lot of fusions, and a lot of them are very busted. Like, you can make Guardian Chimera, you can pop a lot, you can draw a lot. Mirror Jade is also a new fusion monster for the support, like from the structure deck. It has just released it, non-targeting banishes. It you sort of get the gist. It's like big fusion boss monsters that all do certain things, grant you follow-up, which is really important when it comes to a deck. So you have additional, turns to really play them out. Like, you don't run out of resources. If you manage it properly, you always get to sort of have something in the end phase because your fusions that you send to the graveyard through your effects all float. It's a deck to look out for. It can be also played with Brave, and it has been, it has seen play with Brave in the OCG. So even adding Brave to the mix instantly makes a deck just better. So this is really something like a deck to look out for. The next one is going to be Sky Striker, and I have it on my little list as Sky Striker variants. And with most of these decks, we're gonna see this pattern of just variants because Striker can be played with DPE, Brave, and Artifact. So 3 of the most broken, horrible engines in the game right now, Striker can be played with them. And if you have been around for some time, you know what Striker does. It grinds the opponent out. It basically just makes them run out of resources because the game takes a very long time. They can play Mystic Mine. They can go second and just nuke you with hand traps. They can really force you to slow your game down to their level, and then they not dominate you. They got engage back, so they're not exactly full power, but they did get a boost. And together with DPE, together with Access Code, they can also easily OTK. Overall, they just include all of these engines in their little strategy that's very unique when it comes to the actual abuse of spells and the extra deck monsters and all of that. So I think it's a really cool deck to sort of pick up and just have ready, because it's not a bad deck at all. And then we have Drytron. I still wanted to include it, even though it sort of lost a lot on the ban list. Union Carrier is banned, Ben 10 is a 1, Eva is banned. It just Drytron just keeps getting hit because it was a really good deck. You can make Ultimateness, you could have a million negates and just, your opponent cannot deal with it most of the time. You have all of your effects in hand and also engraved, so it's like you're playing with 2 hands. You abuse rituals, you abuse Xyz, you go into Zeus very easily through the Lyrlisk stuff, and it's it was an awesome deck, and it just really got sort of toned down because of the ban list. But I still see it being sort of tested out. You see the Megalith version, you see the Ritual, straight up just fairy version, the fairy turbo version. So it's it's very cool to see. You know, I think this deck is really, really nice. It's sort of also hard, so it just really makes you think. It helps you evolve as a player, and I respect that very much with a deck. And if Joy-Tron does anything right now, it really makes you think. It makes you adapt your build to the current meta, and it's definitely not bad. It's not one of the best ones, but if you maybe already have it from the previous formats, I would highly advise you to just work on perfecting that build. And then we have two, and their sort of place on the list is very much interchangeable, because both of them have the same pluses and struggle with the same thing. And what I mean by that is Dragon Link and Phantom Knight. Both of them are strong combo decks. And also both of them need a very, very good pilot and a very good build, because they do struggle with consistency sometimes. And it's also interesting how the base deck and those kinds of combo decks really toned the other two that I'm talking about now down, just because they are much more consistent and they achieve more. Even though both of these decks actually can play Brave. So on this list, you would actually have Dragon Link variants and Phantom Knight variants, because both of them can also be played pure, which is a very big pro, because if you're sort of on a budget, you don't need to run Brave to make your deck good. It just helps a lot, obviously. But yeah, as mentioned, both of them are strong, but do struggle sometimes. So if you're thinking of picking these decks up, I would suggest it, because it teaches you a lot, but also you need to pick them up and also sort of have in mind that you're gonna have to work with them a lot, similarly to Joy-Tron, and really perfect your build and make it so they can perform in today's meta. And with that, we are moving on to sort of the best decks, and one of them is Flunder. So I almost wanted to say one of them is sadly Flunder, because I strongly dislike Flunder. I just don't think it's a very good deck, because it doesn't seem that hard to me. And when a deck doesn't seem like it takes, a lot of, I guess, skill, I just don't particularly like it. But that's really me. That has nothing to do with it. It's still a strong deck. So yeah, basically what Flunder does in a nutshell is just sort of stuns your opponent. You normal summon a lot. You make it so your opponent cannot really play. And then you sort of play this strategy of protect the castle or protect the barrier statue with Book of Moon, with stuff like that. You have Prosperity to dig through your resources. You have D-Shifter to shut your opponent off. And basically, yeah, if you're trying to play a deck that counters the meta, I guess Flunder would be it, because you do have consistency. You have one card combos, you have Prosperity, you go through your deck a lot. So yeah, I mean, I would recommend it if you're down for something like that. I don't particularly like it, but it does perform really well. And then we have Swordsoul variants. So Swordsoul never really lost anything besides Pot of Desires and also Protoss. Protoss was very just unhealthy and lame, but the Desires hit did hurt a lot, because it does help with consistency. Obviously, Swordsoul played 3, so this is something, I guess. But besides that, Swordsoul really lost nothing. It's still quite a strong deck. It abuses the synchros, and also Swordsoul has variants. So you can play with Hulk, you can play with Auroradon, you can go into a lot of different plays, and you can choose a lot of different texts when it comes to your extra deck. It's also not that easy, so you need to sort of think. It's sort of a control/combo. It's very mid-rangey, so it gives you, abilities on a lot of different, I guess, areas of the game if you're trying to learn and get better. And it's also just, it's nice. It ends up on solid things. You have follow-up. You don't really just, lose immediately to like a Dark Ruler. You have a trap. You can deal with a lot of things. I think in Swordsoul you have space to play hand traps. You're also strong going second because of the Tanya cards. So Swordsoul is really a deck I would recommend if you're thinking of picking anything up. And then we have Eldritch variants. So this took me by surprise, honestly. How Eldritch started performing in the last, I guess, month or so was just mind-blowing to me. They picked up Cyberse, basically is just Cyberse Eldritch, and they do DPE, Dagda plays. And, in today's, I guess, time, when those engines are as busted as they are, I guess this is sort of everything you need. And if you pair it up with Eldritch trap cards, which were never exactly bad, Eldritch just struggled when it needed to be played on its own, I think. But right now, even the pure Eldritch variants, so like the Traplich stuff, I guess, is not struggling at all. You have Skill Drain, you have There Can Be, you have a lot of, just powerful trap cards like IDP and stuff like that. So you just deal with the format easily. You have Eldritch stuff, you have the Cyberse stuff. If you're trying to play it that way, together with Cyberse, obviously you have Brave as well. So we're starting to see a pattern here. And it's a really strong deck because it's cool because it's not combo. So, I mean, it's sort of combo if you're thinking of like the small, I guess, link stuff you do. But other than that, it's very much a control deck. You need to think how you are going to not exactly make an unbreakable board, but interact with your opponent at correct points in time, which is also hard, I think. So yeah, it gives you a lot, and it's very strong. Like, legit, I have nothing to say against it. I think it's so cool that Eldritch is sort of rising up again. And then we have the two best decks, the base deck and the Prankets deck. And as number 2, I put the base deck because it is seeing less representation when it comes to top cuts, and it's performing well. It does seem a bit weird because it's sort of including a lot of different engines, so you need to think a lot how you're going to play. If you get disrupted, you don't always have perfect follow-up. It's a bit more fragile when it comes to like the comparison to the Prankets deck. That's why I put Prankets at number 1 and Base at number 2. But something to note is it abuses all of the best engines, as I previously mentioned, the Brave stuff, the DPE stuff, the Artifact stuff, all of that. You can play in these decks, but you can really tailor your builds to your liking. So this is what I like about Base. Basically, you can go into so many different routes. Like, you go for Auroradon plays, you go for Yahtzee plays, so Baron together with Yahtzee, through Hulk, all of that, just continue with your plays. Or you go for a bit more basic stuff. You have builds with Tanias, you have builds with small swords, so packages. It's everything, basically. You can play 60, you can play 40, you can play a lot of bricks, or you can play a bit more consistently and your combos change a bit. It's very hard because when it comes to synchros, I think every deck is hard. You need to think about your tuners, your levels, I guess, how you're going to adjust if you're going second. You're obviously not going for the basic turn 1 play, so you need to abuse your synchros in a different kind of way to break through boards. And it's I think it's a very cool format in terms of what a combo deck can achieve and what it can give you when you're trying to play it, when you're trying to pilot it. But other than that, obviously the inclusion of all of these busted engines is just a bit too much, I think. So yeah, if you're really trying to pick up the best deck, it would definitely be one of these, which makes the format sort of stale and unhealthy by itself. But I guess it's still the format we are in. And with that being said, Prankets would be our number 1 deck. And Prankets are they're busted. Basically, they are so good. They're a 1-card combo deck. They play a lot of hand traps, have a lot of space for that because they are a 1-card combo deck. So you have a lot of flex spots for different types of things, different types of hand traps to counteract the meta, and you have the Brave stuff. And when you have the Brave stuff, when it protects your Prankets combo, at that point, it's sort of unstoppable. You have incredible follow-up. You can legit do whatever, and it's also a hard deck to master, so it teaches you a lot, it gives you a lot, and it's consistent, it's good, it's the best one. And yeah, if you're just looking at like the top breakdowns, you will be able to see a pattern of just Prankets, Based, Eldritch, Sword Soul, and then the other stuff is sort of trickling in, one by one. So these would be the best decks and the ones that would be good choices to pick up if you're trying to really compete in today's meta. And it's also cool to me that it's basically a mixture of combo and control and just, I guess, mid-rangey decks. But what I dislike strongly is the fact that most of them include the same engines, because it really makes it so you need to, I guess, invest in those engines, and they're not really cheap, which is lame when they're not accessible to everyone. And then the other engine, which is, I guess, Scythe, is also very unhealthy. So like all of that, like this entire list, you know, it's an idea for you if you want to pick a deck up. But looking at the upcoming Forbidden and Limited list, it's like hopefully they take care of a couple things that make this format very much unhealthy, because without a couple problems, I think all of these decks are still going to be able to compete quite well. So it's a good choice to pick up either one of them, and I think you're still going to be doing well after the ban list, but maybe, you know, just maybe the format will be a bit healthier. So yeah, hopefully this video was useful to you, and let me know what you think. Which deck are you playing right now? Which deck are you going to be playing? Are you excited for Despia? And I want to know your thoughts. And yeah, if you like the video, make sure to like it, give me a sub, check out all of the social media, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!